Good morning, Nathan Charlan. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Doing excellent. How are you?
Oh, it's another good day to be alive, my friend. Looks like we're going to do some deep diving. I see the whiteboard.
Yep. I did a little bit of a combo and a couple of videos I did in the past about, what Israel means, as well as what the word Semite means, as those are all the buzzwords now being weaponized and used, I think, against us in a direct violation of our First Amendment rights.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I can't remember the new X, or not X, but TikTok CEO. But yeah, he's pretty. It seems like if there's any group of people that you're not supposed to criticize, seems to be the ones that claim to be Israel or the Zionists or the Jews, whatever you want to put on it. But yeah, it seems like doesn't matter what is put out on the media. It does seem like whatever group it is, whether it's BLM or, the one percenters or, it's all used against us to divide us. And the reality is we should just be critically thinking and looking at every subject individually and coming up with our own reasoning on what the truth is.
Oh, absolutely. Judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin, their ethnic identity, where they came from, or who they belong to. I'm a Christian. Love your neighbor as yourself. I love all people, right? But there's ways that people act against God. There's ways that people act against other humans, and that needs correction. That needs righteousness instilled there. But yeah, we live in a free America. I don't think that's been any more clear than the trend going on right now because of the World Cup, with all these Europeans experiencing the real America firsthand. I think we're getting a great glimpse of patriotism and appreciation for who we are as a people here, from foreigners, experiencing it for the first time.
All right, well, let's get into it. Looks like you're ready to roll.
Yeah. So we're talking about Israel, right? And nowadays it's a loaded word. And when you look at it, if you criticize Judaism, if you criticize the current modern secular nation state of Israel, if you criticize the government of Israel, if you criticize Netanyahu himself, all of this is like you're criticizing Israel, because there is so many meanings associated with this one word. And so I kind of just stripped it and we go back, biblically speaking. And so I have like this little outline here. I'll go over here. So Israel has 9 different meanings that I kind of outlined. It starts off as Jacob's new covenant name. We get that in Genesis, right? Jacob, the son of Isaac, who is the son of Abraham. Then Jacob has descendants. He has 12 sons. They comprise the 12 tribes of Israel. Israel also is the ancient covenant nation state or kingdom. So that was, at that time, it was called Israel, the whole nation. Israel is also considered a religious tradition. Now, Judaism emerges from that, and that kind of emerges during the early first century. It develops after Second Temple Jewish literature, Second Temple Jewish religious practices, and then becomes more prominent after 70 AD. It's an ethnic identity, so a lot of Jewish people will claim that they're not white, right? They're not white, they're not black, they are their own racial identity. It's a cultural identity as well. And then, of course, we get the current modern geopolitical nation state, secular nation state, developed in 1948 with the Rothschilds backing. We have the current Israel government and leadership, led by Malkowski or Netanyahu. And we have the term Zionism, which is directly related to Israel. On the surface, people will say, oh, that's just a term for Israel to exist as a nation. But what we really know that its true meaning is the Greater Israel Project, where if you saw the Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee interview, or you just look at what Netanyahu is doing right now. The idea for the Greater Israel Project is to expand across the Middle East from the Nile to the Euphrates. So parts of Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, that's their goal right now, is an expansion of Israel across all those territories that they claim were promised to them by God in Genesis.
Yeah, well, isn't that all kind of a wash? I mean, isn't it like that's all like already come to pass? I mean, that covenant was broken, and it doesn't really matter who you are and what race or ethnicity or, you basically that covenant that was made with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, which Israel and the Israelites, I mean, that's already come to pass. And then there's a new covenant now for anybody who believes has nothing to do with where you come from or who you are.
Absolutely. And that's where this confusion comes in, because now you have a definitive split among Christians, whether it's, Catholics, evangelicals, Protestants, you name it. You have your solid Christians who understand the Bible, who understand that viewpoint of the covenant and how it was broken and how it was conditional. And then you have your Zionist Christians who take this dispensationalist worldview that says that God has a plan for everyone else, but he has a separate plan for Israel and the Jews. And some will go so far as to say that God's separate plan for Israel and the Jews includes a separate plan for their salvation that doesn't include Jesus Christ, which, as we know, is completely heretical. But that is the confusion going on right here. And I've kind of gone through before that the current modern secular nation state of Israel is not equal to the Israel of the Bible. And even the government leaders, even how the government was formed back in 1948, they will even say this. They do not equate themselves to biblical Israel, yet we see a lot of those themes and those claims going on from them. So they kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth.
Well, you can identify however you want. I mean, I can say I'm a direct descendant of Judah, but how am I going to prove that, I mean, I don't think anybody can really prove what Israelite tribe they come from, if they are Israelites.
They cannot. That is absolutely true. So back so we're going back to the kingdom of Israel. King Saul, David, Solomon. After Solomon, there's a civil war, and they break up into two nations. You got Israel to the north, you got Judah to the south. Judah had three tribes. Okay, that was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the tribe of the priests. Mm-hmm. And then up in Israel, they had the 10 tribes. Now, it's because Joseph's tribe got split into two, right? Ephraim and Manasseh. So that's why there's 13. But the 10 tribes in Israel, that was Samaria back in Jesus's time, that they were the hated Samaritans, right? That was they were mongrel blood, they were mixed blood, because when Israel got taken away to exile by the Assyrians, they never fully came back to reestablish Israel. They came and they mixed with other nations, and so they were half-breeds according to the Jews of Jesus's time. And then you have Judah, that was taken by the Babylonians into exile for 70 years, but then they stayed pure, they stayed separate, and then they came back to the land to rebuild the temple and rebuild Judah. So that happened. Then you have 70 AD, where the Romans come in and completely annihilate Jerusalem. They level the temple to the ground. Israel ceases to exist as a nation. It becomes Palestine thereafter. Because they leveled the temple and destroyed everything, all the lineage records destroyed. Nobody today can point to what tribe they belong to. So even when we go back and look at some of the metaphorical language in apocalyptic literature like Revelation, where it talks about the 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe, nobody today can even trace their lineage back to a specific tribe. Yeah,
and in that area history, we can show through history that there was a lot of people in that area that, if you go to Esau, Jacob's brother, and, who he was breeding with and other people, that came from other nations, there was a lot of mix of different people of different bloodlines in that area that converted over to Judaism. And so anyways, I don't think you could say who's who, but we definitely know there was more than just pure Israelites in that area.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Rome was the occupier at that time. And this is where, the new covenant comes in during Jesus Christ's walk on earth. When he was going around and preaching, some of the most powerful verses that, bring Gentiles into the fold is like when a Roman centurion comes up to Jesus and asks for help in healing his servant, and he says, you don't even have to come to my house. I'm a man of authority too. I tell one person, go here, and they go. I tell another person, go there, and they go. And he knew Jesus's power. And Jesus said, I have not seen faith like this in all of Israel. And he said that about a Gentile, not only a Gentile, but a Roman occupier, right? The enemy of enemies for the Jewish people. And so this whole notion of, the chosen people and goyim, the not chosen people who are just kind of human cattle, that all goes to the wayside through the direct words of the Son of God.
Oh, absolutely. And I think he was a controversial person back in the day, Jesus. It seemed like he was highly controversial, kind of similar to these days. I feel like there's a lot of similarities to things and subjects that people talk about that are very divisive.
No, absolutely. And it's because of, I think, just wrong interpretation. Like, look, when we go back into the Bible, especially the shared books we have with the Jewish people, we have Genesis and we have the Tower of Babel account. And if you have the supernatural worldview where God had appointed other sons of God, other Elohim, as leaders of other nations, the Tower of Babel, he created a whole bunch of different nation states, and they scattered throughout the earth. And these Elohim were supposed to be in charge of the different nation states, pointing the people to worship Yahweh. And that was the goal. This is the Deuteronomy 32 worldview. And out of that, God decides he's going to create his own nation for himself, and that through this nation would come the redemption of all mankind, the salvation for all mankind. And that's what he had promised Abraham. And so this verse in Genesis 12:3, I will bless those who bless you, I will curse those who curse you. Yahweh is talking directly to Abraham. Israel hasn't even been mentioned yet. And so in talking about that, it's just the covenant line, the lineage through Abraham, through which Jesus Christ would be born as salvation and blessing for all the nations. But now we have this superiority complex that we're seeing, that the Jews are better than all of us, right? And even some, crazy dispensationalist evangelicals are teaching that as well. And that's just not the case. It's not what we read biblically. Israel was chosen for a redemptive purpose, not for racial superiority. Again, Genesis 12:3. And the whole thing with Israel comes in Genesis 32:28, when God had come down. We call it a Christophany, a pre-incarnate Christ figure, who had wrestled with Jacob all night, right? And then had touched his hip and kind of dislocated his hip. And then Jacob demands a blessing from this pre-incarnate Christ. And he says to Jacob, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven or wrestled with God and with men and have prevailed. So Israel, in its Hebrew meaning, its root, means he who struggles or wrestles with God. And again, it's not a racial superiority thing. They were just the vessel through which God blessed and brought salvation to mankind.
Yeah, absolutely. Carry on. I'm 100% with you.
Okay, so the next part, we see is this, just like racism, homophobic, right, Islamophobic, misogynist, you name it, all these kind of Nazi, these words that just get, thrown at you because you have a different viewpoint, a different opinion, and it's meant to smear you. But after so much usage, they just lose their meaning. Nobody cares anymore. Like, who really is racist, right? But we have that same thing with the word Semite or anti-Semite. That's what you get smeared. That's the smear that's supposed to stop you from, being able to succeed in this society in America now. So even with representatives, senators across the country, if you're deemed anti-Semitic, like the entire billionaire machine is out to get you. Just reference Thomas Massey. So I had an issue with this word Semite because it seems to just have been hijacked and co-opted by the Jewish people. Like that, like if you're anti-Semite, you're anti-Jew. But for me, it's like words have meaning, and the meanings and definitions of words matter. I mean, we've had that recently, especially with the word woman. But going through this, words, definitions, and meaning. Of course, these things can change over time. Right, we've had a lot of situations where certain words in our vocabulary, they mean one thing for a long time, and then all of a sudden they change to mean something completely different. Even though
I have
it's the same meaning.
I have dictionaries from the 1800s. I'd like to get some older than that, but I try to have stuff written on paper and always try to go back to, and I know the 1800s were not that long ago, but I try to get what words meant and what the meaning of, at the time that they were written. And it can be a little bit difficult, but I'm trying to get my hands on as much stuff written down on paper that can't be changed, through the Internet of Things. Because you can go, I'm sure you've had this happen to you where you might look up the definition of something or what a movement meant or what, like just Judeo-Christianity, for example. I was at a meeting, and basically I was told, and there's some people listening here, and that's fine. I disagree with a lot of things that a lot of people say, but I also genuinely am willing to listen to them for what they believe in, and I could strongly disagree. But I was at this meeting, and basically we were told that only that you could be a Judeo-Christian, a Jew, or a Christian to come to the meetings. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, so you mean, but a Judeo-Christian is a Jew who converted over to Christianity, because that's what the actual original terminology. But now Judeo-Christianity means something completely different. But when I go back and look in my old dictionaries, like what it meant in the 1800s, Judeo-Christianity meant a Jew that converted to Christianity. So I was just trying to clarify, and I kind of got, lectured in a good way about what it was. And I was kind of just like, what the heck? But you can take these, these things that you know what it means, and then it means something completely different later down the road. So unless you have it written down, if you go to the internet and look up what does this mean. Now, if you still go and look up what did Judeo-Christianity originally mean, you will, about 6 months ago or so, it still did tell you that's what it did mean. But things do change over time. And if it's not written down, you can go back 5 years later. You could tell somebody, oh yeah, and you go to look it up and you're like, that's crazy. This is not what that meant 5 years ago.
And this is how words and definitions can be weaponized against us. Now, some words and their meaning, it changes, it sticks, it kind of makes sense, and it's not a big deal. Others, it's like, no, this is a ground we stand on, and it's a battle we have to make sure that this particular word and its meaning is absolutely clear. And I'll kind of go through that. So, some of the words that have changed or evolved over time. Example, gay. Right? Yeah. Gay has completely changed. It was, it's used in a Christmas song. It was used in the Flintstones theme song. You'll have a gay old time. it just meant happy. It meant joyful. It was that was the word for it. And now, of course, we know what it has come to mean, and there's no changing that back, right? If you say gay, we all know what that is. It's not really a battle worth fighting over, but that word has changed. Same thing with fag. It's used in the UK now to reference a cigarette.
Yeah.
Definition, it was also like a bundle of sticks. But again, that word has been used and changed.
I got to tell you a short story. So it'll be really fast. I bought this backpack at a yard sale. It was a really nice just backpack. I got it for like $3 or $5 or something. And it had a rainbow on it. Well, I actually did not know that the rainbow was associated with being gay or whatever, and I was going to the gym, and this gay guy kept, telling me he wanted to give me massages and all this stuff. And I was just like, and the guy who ran the gym there, was actually in Hawaii on the Big Island. This is a long time ago, maybe 20 something years ago. And I lived out there in the winter times for a little bit. But anyways, and I told the guy, I was like, dude, that guy's weird. He keeps asking me, and he goes, dude, it's probably because you got a rainbow on your freaking backpack. And I was like, so what? That I was clueless. But anyways, I want to take the rainbow back because I like rainbows.
and that's a fight worth having. And there's also a distinction too. I mean, that is a Christian symbol for God's promise not to flood the world again, right? It's clear, and it's been hijacked. Now, there is a difference, right? And a lot of people don't know. So the gay rainbow has 6 colors, whereas we know from school the actual real God rainbow has 7 colors.
Yeah.
Roy G. Biv to describe that. So that's one distinction as well. But now anything with a series of colors has become a gay rainbow. I've had that same experience when I have a Jesus is King hat, and it's got 4 retro colors, just lines of retro colors, like orange, blue, 2 others, yellow, green, something like that. And everyone's saying, look, like you can't have this gay rainbow and Jesus at the same. I'm like, it's 4 colors, the retro colors. It's not a rainbow. It's not a gay rainbow. But again, that has been weaponized against us so that now anytime a rainbow is depicted anywhere other than the sky, it's a gay symbol, unfortunately. And that's a fight worth having to take it back. So, some small groups do attempt to change the definition of a word against societal and logical standards. So the example I have here is woman. Now that is a fight worth having. They are not going to change the definition of a woman to include, men with penises. That's just not going to happen. But we have this issue that goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, that a Supreme Court justice couldn't even define the word woman, and she was a woman, in her confirmation hearings. So again, they try to change the language. Orwell talked to us about this.
That's more ridiculous than me claiming to be a 7'6" black man. I mean, the people would laugh at me if I was like, no, you can't get any more ridiculous than that.
No, you can't. And so logic has to prevail. Biology has to prevail. Truth has to prevail on those types of words. Now, of course, we have other words that are changed because of cultural trends, generational slang, but these are fleeting in use, right? They come and go for a time. Back in the 60s, groovy, when I was growing, bad was good. You're so bad, but that meant good. And nowadays, of course, like no cap, right? So again, that's just slang. It comes and goes, not really a big deal. And then some words and definitions get hijacked by groups and certain identities. So I, listed out racist or racism. That apparently only applies to white people, right? Only white people can be racist, which we know by definition that is not true. I'll get into Semite. Semite has been co-opted as well. And then, as a Christian who also sees the beauty in nature and God's creation, the occult or the New Age movement, they've hijacked, energy, vibration, frequency, those kind of things that God has created But if you talk about that, if you try to, hone in on that with God's creation, you're all of a sudden a New Age witchcraft occultist. So again, some things are important to battle on, others not so much. But the one that's being weaponized against us right now, of course, is Semite, and that apparently only means the Jewish people, but that's just not true, because the root of the word was the Semite itself was coined in the 18th century by European linguists. It was a linguistic classification for people speaking Semitic languages. Now, Semite simply means from the line of Shem. All right, Genesis 10:1, we get the three sons of Noah, Japheth, Shem, Ham. So the descendants of Shem are Semites. Semitic languages include Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, Akkadian, Phoenician. So it's not just Jews. And then I have a little, family tree here of Shem all the way to Abraham. So I'll skip some of these names except Eber. So Eber, the fourth from Shem. This is where we get the word Hebrew from Eber.
Mm-hmm.
And then Peleg, Ru, Serug, Nahor, Terah, and then, of course, Abraham. So Genesis 17:4, Abraham, now he has basically three offshoots of sons. So through Hagar, he has Ishmael. Through Ishmael was the 12 princes, 12 Arab princes,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives us the Arab tribal confederations. Through Sarah, we have Isaac, and then, of course, Jacob, and then the 12 tribes of Israel. And then through Keturah, who is a later wife after Sarah died, we have 6 others: Zimram, Midian, Jokshan, Ishbak, Medan, and Shua. And this is where we get the Midianites and other offshoots. So Semite really includes not just the Jews, but also all of the different Arab groups as well, all descended from Shem. That's what that word means. And so Israel and Jews are Semitic, Arabs are Semitic. Everyone, of course, all were descended from Noah. That's Genesis 9:10. And Shem's line, that's the line that carries the covenant through Abraham. And that's listed in Genesis 12. Now, the scripture distinguishes the covenant lineage from ethnic classification. And again, we talked about Genesis 12:3. I will bless those who bless you. Who? Abraham. I will curse those who curse you. Who? Abraham. Not Israel, Abraham. Because all nations will be blessed through Abraham. And then we have Galatians 3:28 through 29, 4:28, and Matthew 3:9. And I'll go through those if you give me a second to look up those verses. Galatians. We'll go to chapter 3, verses 28 and 29. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free man. There is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's descendants, heirs according to the promise. So here we get rid of this whole notion of the chosen people or ethnic and racial superiority. Jesus repeats this a lot, throughout his ministry. The last will be first, the first will be last. This is showing like a complete equal playing field for everybody. Doesn't matter what status you have, doesn't matter who you are. All of this gets washed away with Christ in the new covenant. Then we have Galatians 4:28. And this one says, and you, brethren, like Isaac, are children of the promise. And then Jesus tells us as well in Matthew 3:9. So this is just setting up because the Jews felt so superior to their surroundings. Again, they were supposed to be the light to the other nations. And Jesus tells them, let's see, Matthew 3:9. And he says, and do not suppose that you can say to yourselves, we have Abraham for our father, as if they were, special and set apart. For I say to you that from these stones, God is able to raise up children to Abraham. So Jesus is putting a kibosh right away on the whole ethnic superiority that Jews are the only way to salvation. It's Jesus that is the only way to salvation.
Absolutely. Yeah, all this outdated stuff doesn't even matter, but you kind of got to get into the weeds with it when it's being weaponized against us.
Not only weaponized, but used as foreign policy. This is when you have a wrong interpretation of eschatological events and you're applying a wrong interpretation of biblical Israel with modern secular nation state Israel, and it's being used within our own government in a way of faith in foreign policy, we automatically know that the alarm bells should be going off. And unfortunately, there is a pretty sizable chunk of Protestant evangelical Christians who are all about this and excited, as if, starting a war with Iran or having Israel kill a whole bunch of civilians and conquer the land from the Euphrates to the Nile is somehow going to usher in faster the return of Jesus Christ for Christians, of the Messiah that they're still waiting on for the Jews, or the last imam, or whatever you call it, for the Muslims. It's insane that now we're thinking we can rush some kind of prophecy events by triggering things ourselves with conscious effort, like that's ever been done in history before. I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in the Bible either, where the people of Judah or Israel are trying to rush and certain events by specifically and consciously enacting things in order to have prophecy be fulfilled.
Yeah, I don't know if you've gotten into Sabbateanism or Sabbatianism, Sabbatai Shvi, and then Jacob Frank and all that. I don't know if you've researched those guys much, or
I haven't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a guy, Sabbatai Shvi is, I believe, how you, a lot of people will say Sevi is what it looks like, but Sabbatai Shvi, which I'm probably not pronouncing it exactly 100%, but that was back in the 1600s, and a lot of this ideology that you're talking about comes from, that's the most modern source of this ideology. That's, the Talmud and all that kind of stuff, that's with the prophecy stuff. And so basically they figured that if they, like, everything that's good to us is they do the opposite. So that's where it comes into child sacrifice, rape, and the normalization of all these the things that we would think are the worst, atrocious things you could do to somebody somehow is going to bring back the Messiah and fulfill prophecy through these evil deeds. But then in the 1700s, Jacob Frank actually claimed to be the reincarnated Sabbatai Shvi. And then that's, so a lot of like Hasidic Jews actually are a spinoff from Sabbateanism. I don't know if you remember seeing that, the tunnel thing in New York, where that,
yeah,
do you know what I'm talking about? And they had blood-stained mattresses in the tunnels and or pulling out of the side of the walls inside there. And they would hang effigies of children and like in the middle of service, at the synagogue. It's pretty wild. But there's a lot of different types of Jews, and we can get into that. I mean, there's Orthodox Jews that follow the Torah that is very similar to Christians, and they don't believe in Jesus being the Messiah, obviously, but their belief systems are very similar. They're not doing evil deeds. They follow the Torah, which is very similar to Christianity. Obviously, they follow Moses. But anyways, Jacob, there was an alliance with Jacob Frank and Adam Weishaupt and the Rothschilds, and they actually got together and formed in 1776. I'm not kidding. Is when Adam Weishaupt, which was basically the Illuminati, and Jacob Frank and the Rothschilds all joined forces to kind of take over the world, which is, anyways, that's we'll do another deep dive on that. I'll bring the whiteboard next time.
Yeah, I mean, and it was the Rothschilds who were directly connected to the creation of 1948 Israel.
Yeah, they're behind a lot of things. That family seems to pop up quite a bit in history. And go ahead.
No, just, like you were saying, a lot of this is, again, you have different types of people in Israel, or different types of people who call themselves Jews. Again, this isn't a criticism or smear against every single one of them. I think for a large part, when people are criticizing Israel, they're criticizing the government of Israel, and especially the war campaigns and the nonstop aggressiveness that goes well beyond what's necessary. We're seeing them level entire villages. I mean, they completely leveled the entirety of Gaza, and they're going way beyond. And it's like, yeah, words like genocide or ethnic cleansing are being used for this because we're being gaslit with Netanyahu telling the world that Israel is the most moral army. Yet we're seeing video that shows the complete opposite. And again, this isn't every single individual Jewish person. There are plenty who are against what the government's doing. There's plenty who are against Netanyahu himself. And there are plenty, like you had said, who are ultra-religious Orthodox who actually don't believe that the nation state of Israel should exist right now.
They're the most anti-Zionist activist out there, period. Like, there's
and
no.
These are the words. It's like Zionism. You'll have one person who says, "Oh, well, you're an anti-Zionist. You don't want Israel to exist." And it's like, I didn't say that, right? Zionism doesn't mean just for the nation state as it's defined right now with its borders right now that it has the right to exist. That word actually means way beyond that. It means this greater Israel project. It means racial superiority. We see this in the rabbis who speak. They're open about it. They're not afraid. We see the videos. We hear their language. And as I said last time I was on, you just take the people at their word. And that's all you have to do. Take the people at the word.
Yeah. Do you got that video ready, Leslie? I got a short video, and I don't want to interrupt this, but you were talking about us being the goy, being referred to as dogs and all that. But I mean, I would claim that they're not who they say they are, and we're not who they say we are, but we're definitely not dogs. Play this video real quick though. So this is a very prominent rabbi, Rabbi Yaakov Asher Sinclair. And he's like huge. I mean, he's like way up there in government and stuff, but you can go to his website and check this guy out. But this is one of the like top rabbis in the world. Go ahead and hit play real quick. We'll just listen to a couple minutes.
The Jewish people are God's chosen treasure in this world, but there's no privilege without responsibility. It really doesn't matter if Donald Trump or Donald Duck wins the US elections. It really doesn't matter if Kamala Harris or Kermit the Frog wins. Our rabbis teach us, Lev Malachim v'sarim biyad Hashem. The hearts of kings and ministers are in the hands of God. When it comes to international affairs, anything that impinges on the future of this world, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris have no freedom of choice. They become like puppets. And who pulls the strings of those puppets? We do, the Jewish people. God set up this world in such a way that our every action for the good or the not so good ascends through all the spiritual worlds above this world to the highest possible places in creation. It makes an effect there, and then the power of that action descends back down all through those worlds to this, the lowest physical world, and becomes a physical reality. For example, someone keeps Shabbos in Bristol or in Timbuktu. That spiritual energy ascends all the way to the control room of the universe and is sent back down as massive positive energy. A typhoon in the China Sea is cancelled. Abundant rain falls in Niger, averting a famine. The Gemara says, Panei Hador kapanei hakelev. The face of the generation, this generation, the generation just before Mashiach, is like the face of a dog. If you were a visiting Martian and unfamiliar with Earth creatures, and you saw a man and a dog out for a walk, you'd think that because the dog was out in front, he was leading the man. But the dog is constantly looking over its shoulder, finding out which way it should go. The leaders of this world are not in charge, we are. Don't look at the news
Go
to
ahead
find
and turn
out
it
what's
off at this point. Anyways, what do you think? Have you seen that before, Nathan?
I haven't seen that one. I've seen others.
Oh yeah,
like
there's a lot of videos out there like it.
There is, yeah. I've seen more of the I don't know if you call him a hothead, but just a overly arrogant. He's probably in his late 50s. I forgot his name, but him talking about the same kinds of things about racial superiority, that they're in control. Again, it's not just a one-off, right?
If somebody didn't like dive into this at all, they would think that was like some kind of satire thing or made up thing. But then when you deep dive into it, you realize this is like absolutely this elitist mentality that that's just the way they think. That's the way they've thought for a long time. And anyways, it's unfortunate. But you look at the APAC money. You look at all the foundations that support, they have gotten inside and controlled us. It's a very slow plan that's been being laid out for a really long time. But I mean, there's a lot more to it than just people saying it.
Absolutely, and now we're this close to somehow integrating the Israeli and the U.S. militaries together. And how would that go if it was any other country like Russia or China, right? I mean, the thought of this is just absolutely insane. And then you get to the other echelons of power, I think people would start making connections, right? If it was a whole bunch of Muslims who were in control behind the scenes, owners, CEOs, presidents of the entire porn industry. Would that raise a red flag? But when we say it happens to be Jewish identifying people who control the porn industry, you're anti-Semitic for pointing it out, right? That just happens to be a coincidence.
Yeah, when we have whistleblowers that point corruption out, they get the people that did the corruption at the highest level. They don't never get in trouble. The other people get arrested for treason. When you look at people like Snowden and Assange and people like that have been whistleblowers exposing corruption, it's like, whoa, they were exposing stuff that was classified. And it's like, well, so we're just supposed to ignore the information that we got about the corrupt world powers and arrest the person that committed treason for hacking into something? It's crazy.
Yeah. And we're supposed to believe this gaslighting lie that this country, this foreign nation, is our greatest ally, and unquestionably our greatest ally, even though they've never sent a single soldier into war with us at all, ever. The money only goes one way, us to them, that's it. And then they have, universal health care, all the different benefits that your average American doesn't get. The whole thing of this greatest ally thing, it's like, why? They're a nation that, I think this is the month, right, that they're in the area of historical Sodom and Gomorrah celebrating gay pride and just basically throwing a middle finger up at God with that. So this is our greatest ally. And of course, I have, on a kind of a spiritual level, I know that this nation, USA, has to repent and turn itself towards God, ask for forgiveness. As a nation, we need to do that as a people. We're not perfect. We're probably modern day Babylon. But that's the only way that I can see us being the greatest ally is in our debauchery and in our war and conquering and destroying around the world. That's our commonality.
Yeah, no, I 100% agreed. Hey, do you know Revelation 3:9? Or anyways,
yes, synagogue of Satan.
Yep. Yeah. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which they say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee.
And this is where, so I used to be one who was like, okay, I can't criticize Israel. That was my headspace only a few years ago, where I thought, Israel is a special nation, appointed by God. But then, I started seeing other things. I started seeing other opinions, and I started opening myself up, and started thinking, wait a minute, I've read the Bible, Genesis to Revelation, four or more times. I'm pretty well versed with it, and I know the general stories. And it's like, okay, the modern state of Israel, it is going off and committing, absolute atrocities. And we know that they kill children, they kill women and children, they completely destroy whole areas just looking for a person. Trump, actually, in a rare moment of clarity, actually had said that Israel needs to calm down on Lebanon because they, bomb an entire apartment complex just trying to look for one person. And this is what they do. They will kill every man, woman, and child in an area just looking for one or two people. And so the question I had is like, okay, are they acting like a godly nation? No, I mean, they're absolutely anti-Christ. It just who they are. They do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Ben Shapiro even clarified that. And they have horrible things to say about Jesus in the Talmud. And so now we have an anti-Christ nation that we're hitching up with. And we're looking at their activities being like, no, this isn't a godly nation. And any Christian now who's like, no, I must support Israel no matter what, I say, look back in your Bible. Look at 1st and 2nd Samuel. Look at 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Tell me, did God support Israel when they were burning their children alive in the fires to Baal? Did God support them when they were having orgies and committing all kinds of sin against, with foreign gods or with foreign nations? Did God support them then? No, not at all. He sent prophets to them to tell them what wickedness and evil that they were committing and that needed to repent right away, or consequences, huge consequences would come, and they did. And God punished that nation. And after 70 AD, they ceased to exist for nearly 2,000 years. That was a punishment. Now, again, the modern state, I don't think is any connection to biblical Israel, though people want to make that connection. But the term and the name Israel only came back up, as a real thing in 1948. But God's punishment is upon them, and it is going to be upon any nation that's anti-Christ.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't have to be anti-Zionist or anti-Israel to be, that doesn't mean you're against all Jews. I think we're all equal, personally. I don't think any human being is born superior to anybody else. I think that it depends on, I'm going to judge you by your character and your actions. And I think that's the same way God is and Yahweh. So, and that's what was spoken about. I mean, in the New Testament with Jesus. And so it doesn't really matter, where you come from. It's all about what you believe in. I mean, to be a Christian, you have to believe in Christ. That's the number one. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter if you go to church. You could go to church and not be a believer, and you're not a Christian. I don't care if you go to church and you think you can just go and say, oh yeah, well, I go to church every week, so my sins are forgiven or whatever. But if you're not a true believer, you don't have to go to church. And if you're a believer and you are a Christian. So how do we get joined at the hip with people that, like, the number one rule of being a Christian is that you believe in Christ? Doesn't make any sense. It's kind of an oxymoron, I guess.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's a lot of cultural Christians out there. And I would even go further and say, to be a Christian, you not only believe in Jesus Christ, but you believe him as Lord and Savior. You submit to his lordship to follow and obey his commands. Because even the demons believe and they tremble. Even the demons and Satan knows and can quote scripture. So we see that. But going back to the whole separation of the Jewish people and the Gentiles, and how it's expounded on in the Talmud with the whole goyim thing, they're not even paying attention to their own books, their own Torah, their own history, because we see Gentiles, even prostitute Gentiles, be grafted and come in to the promise, come into the covenant. Rahab, a prostitute of Jericho, saves these Israeli spies, and then later ends up marrying one of the Israelis and becomes a great grandmother of Jesus Christ and his lineage. We see the same thing with Ruth, a Gentile from a foreign nation that comes and marries Boaz. So Gentiles were actually, grafted in and part of the covenant, part of believing, because it was right. Basically, belief, faith, was credited to you as righteousness before, Jesus Christ. Just like Abraham, Abraham's faith was accredited to him as righteousness for salvation, and we see the same thing. So even this whole mixture of, there's this group of Gentiles, there's this group of Jews, that was already being grayed, in the Old Testament. And all of that gets ignored in the Talmud for some reason.
Oh, absolutely. And you don't even have to go back that far in history I'm sure you're familiar with the Russian Revolution or Bolshevik Revolution.
Yeah.
Holodomor. We don't have to go back thousands of years.
Well, and you get into who are the Jews of today, and you hear this other term a lot, and I need to do a deep dive on it, but it's like the Ashkenazi Jews. Who were the Ashkenazi? They were from the Khazar Empire. What was that? Who were they? And you kind of dive in and just kind of surface level. They weren't necessarily, Jews, but they, as a nation or an empire, they were forced to convert to some kind of monotheistic religion, and they had picked Judaism. But that all kind of got warped with, some Kabbalah and mystical beliefs and whatnot. But what we see is all these Eastern European, Jews who come down to occupy this land of Israel, who, still there's Palestinians who have been living there for generations and generations since Jesus' time, who have more, claim to the land and DNA lineage to the land than these Eastern Europeans coming down to occupy it. And so then, you come back to what is a Jew? Are you a Jew ethnically, by DNA? Tucker Carlson did a great job grilling Mike Huckabee on this. It's like, how can we verify these claims? Even if someone like Mike Huckabee is going to biblical claims and biblical promises, how do you verify that in the 21st century? And you can't anymore. You just can't, because the lineages are completely erased.
Yeah. And then, like I said a couple times, it doesn't really matter, even if you could prove it. It doesn't make you any, it might be cool to know where you come from, but in reality, it doesn't put you above or below anybody else, regardless of what you find. We all are equal. We're all God's chosen people if we choose to be. And it's really up to us if we're God's chosen people or not. We all have the same opportunity.
Yeah. My whole stance now is just like the U.S. needs to just cut ties. I wish we could just stop all foreign aid payments, period, end of story. Our country is suffering so much financially as it is, yet we keep borrowing, trillions of dollars to send to other nations overseas, Israel being, a major one of them. For what? Just to continue getting us into a huge debt cycle. It just makes no sense. And then you look at the influence that AIPAC has on our entire Congress. It's pretty insane. And then you look at the machine coming after somebody like Thomas Massie when he decides to go against Israel. He smeared as anti-Semitic. Jewish billionaires pour millions of dollars into that Kentucky campaign to oust a representative.
He was one of the only people that didn't take AIPAC money. Almost on the left and the right, this left-right paradigm is a complete joke. They all take the money, and I read this article the other day, and it was talking about how the Pentagon was concerned with Israel because they were spying more than normal. And that was literally it. Yeah, right. And you're like, okay, so we accept a certain level of spying, but you guys are spying on us too much right now. Like, I just thought that was kind of it was like a softball out there of, I don't know. I just thought that article is their concern now because their spying is more than normal. And I'm like, no level of spying should be acceptable. I forget who that one guy was, but he used to work for the CIA, I believe. And they used to, Israel would always be giving gifts, but like they were all bugged. They all had bugs in them. But this goes back before, there's different waves of spying now, but this goes back to where you'd actually put, a bug certain things. And they said every time they're like, well, how often does this happen? He's like, every single time we got a gift, it was bugged. It was just, you knew it was, you had to find the bug.
Yeah. And that, I mean, just from everything that's been declassified that we know, I mean, they stole our nuclear secrets. And so now they have a completely unsanctioned nuclear arsenal that, they're beyond the International Atomic Energy, coalition or whatever that oversees all of that. They're not part of that. They don't get touched. So they have an unsanctioned nuclear arsenal, and they're concerned about other countries around them, getting nuclear weapons.
I wonder what JFK was trying to stop before he got assassinated.
And he absolutely said, no, absolutely not will Israel get nuclear weapons. And that was one of his major sticking points.
Yeah, and auditing the federal, or shutting down the Federal Reserve, dismantling some of these deep state groups. But yeah, I think that was one of the final straws that got him assassinated. That's just my opinion. I can't prove it, but there seems to be a lot of patterns against people that stand up or expose corruption or try to stop some of the Zionist agendas. And coincidentally, they end up, stuff just happens to them.
Yep, and we just saw that within the last year with Charlie Kirk. I think that there was a connection there as well. I mean, you're looking at the leader of the most powerful, organization, political organization on the right, who was rallying the youth, who absolutely, was a major part in getting Trump, reelected. He had the ear of the youth, and that's a powerful place to be in, but it's also a dangerous one, because if you're not giving the right messaging from, above, then you'll be taken out. And I believe that's what happened to him to silence him. His stance on Israel changed dramatically. And again, he was also against the Iran war and didn't want any part of that, was very vehement in communicating with Trump against that. And how do you stop that? Well, you have to permanently silence those kind of voices, those kind of power. And then I remember at the time, wondering what happened with Charlie and seeing the comments and his, steady changing opinion about Zionism and Israel and his stance on Israel. And he made it pretty clear, especially in his text messages, that he was left with no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. And after his assassination and all that, I said, okay, let's see what happens with Turning Point. Are they going to continue on that path that Charlie was on, or are they completely going to do a 180 and go full on Zionism again? And of course,
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't even have to
Absolutely.
say it. I mean, you just look at, Erica Kirk and look at Tyler Boyer and all the other people, Blake Neff, all the other people at Turning Point, and where their whole opinions are on Zionism, on Israel, on the Iran war. Complete 180 from what Charlie talked about.
The last thing that I thought because to be honest, I actually didn't really I did not like Charlie Kirk. I actually met him in person, but it's not his personality. I didn't like the fact that he was such a cheerleader for Judeo-Christianity, and so that was a turnoff for me. So I didn't really listen to what he had to say, because I was like, if he doesn't get that. So when he was assassinated, I actually had no clue that he was exposing some of this stuff, and he got red pilled somehow. I don't know where it happened, but I never listened to what he had to say. Yeah, he talked about, gender fluidity problems and a lot of things that I would agree with. But then when you get down to the root cause of a lot of the problems, I was just kind of, anybody who's on that bandwagon is kind of a turnoff for me to listen to. But so the last person I would have thought would have been Israel or the IDF or Mossad being, involved in that. But then I started listening to what he was saying, the previous months, and I was actually blown away. I was like, wow, Charlie, you actually did wake up. And, doing a deeper dive into it, absolutely, I came to that conclusion. He was way too powerful. And it was kind of interesting how Bibi Netanyahu said, he goes, I just invited he goes out and says, I didn't kill him. We're not the ones who killed him. I just invited him over. We're best friends. I mean, I'm paraphrasing and making it a little bit satire, but that was very weird that he took the time to respond like that fast. And then we're supposed to believe this guy who had a furry girlfriend or boyfriend. I don't know. I can't remember. He had some kind of, he was kind of like not a freaking Olympic athlete that could jump off a roof like that person did. And then they tell us that he disassembled the gun and then reassembled it and then stashed it and all this stuff. It's just like such an unbelievable story. But I don't know if you saw the way that guy jumped off the roof and everything. And there was obviously people picking stuff up. I've looked at every angle of this, and I've gone through a few different theories on kind of like, was it this, was it that? I'm pretty sure his microphone had a detonating device in it, and you see the shirt jump up, and I think that microphone was supposed to go inside of his shirt. And then it would have been like if it was just a wound underneath his shirt and you didn't see it, so I think it misfired. That's when it jumped and then hit him in the neck. I think because a shirt wouldn't jump the way it did. You could see where the microphone was. It jumps up and then he's got a big hole in his neck. And then we're supposed to be told that a 30-06 man of steel. Like anybody who knows guns at all, if anybody's ever seen a 30-aught or shot a 30-06 or even a 308, which isn't even as powerful, even a 5.56, a 9mm, it's gonna go through somebody's neck. But for a 30-06, like maybe will stop through a moose. A friend of mine shot a moose with a 30-06 and it went all the way through the rib cages, and then it actually started protruding out the other side of the hide. You know what I'm saying? But most of the time it would probably go right through a moose. But it's absolutely insane to believe the official FBI story. And then if nobody's challenging that, you have to look at, well, why, this is really the best story. It's almost like they came up with a story that they had in place. Everything was in place for this story, but when that lapel microphone misfired and hit him in the neck, they just had to double down on it. They didn't have a backup plan for that because there's no freaking way that was, I don't even think it was a bullet, to be honest, period.
No, yeah, you're spot on with that.
And one more thing. Do you remember when they exploded the pagers and cell phones, the IDF? So it kind of falls into.
What did Bibi gift Trump? A golden pager.
Yeah.
Why? Well, why gift Trump a golden pager? The U.S. wasn't said to be involved in that operation. So you got to wonder, is that a subtle threat? Is that a warning? Is that, hey, you step out of line, just know, we have the intelligence, the access to infiltrate supply lines and get you any way we want.
So I just want to clarify, and I'm sure you're on the same page, that it's unfortunate that if you point these things out that, people are going to call us leftists or, saying that we're aligning with these AOCs and the whatever, you know what I mean? These leftist movements. I'm not going to pick a football team. I'm not on the Muslim team. I'm not on the Jew team. I'm on the Christian American team. I think every country should be proud of where they are and do the best that they can. We are living in a completely degenerate society. I'd hate to say it, and our country is super corrupt. That doesn't make me anti-American. That I'm very disappointed in at a lot of levels with our government, but I'm on Team Humanity. Okay.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of good people that have a lot of different belief systems, and I don't have it all figured out. There's certain things that I probably do a pretty good job at understanding to a certain level what the truth is, but I'm not on anybody's team. Team humanity. There you go.
Amen. I mean, that's right. And actually, going back to the whole mic theory, I absolutely believe that just like the pagers, it was a set charge in the microphone. I believe it was meant to create a large hole in his chest, and it, because it's a small charge, because again it's not a gun, things can go wrong. And the large hole in the chest was the plan. And 30-06, like you said, that was the story that was probably
it would have been way more believable.
Way more believable, right? And so this is what I noticed happens though. And going back to like 9/11,
yeah,
it's the public is seeing a traumatic image. And remember how many times social media allowed the gore to play over and over and over and over again. I mean, so it was saturated, right? Just like 9/11, where we're seeing people jump out of buildings, of buildings coming down. And you're in this state of trauma and shock. Like, I can't believe this is real. And during that state of trauma and shock, your logical guard, I think, comes down, right? There's probably a psychological term for this, or studies on this. And then, then the news starts inserting information, and you just kind of accept it as truth. You don't really question it because, again, your guard's down. So like in 9/11, when they're like, oh, look, we found one of the terrorist passports on the ground. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Or,
you can't find a part of the plane, but the passport just magically floated down unscathed. Like,
and
what?
So, right?
Is that just putting it in our face? Like, why would they make it look kind of burned up a little bit? I mean, it's crazy to me.
It is crazy. But the other part, too, was Building 7. Right.
Yeah.
And they tell us that because of, the shaking or the fires or whatever, that we're watching a full free fall demolition building come down, that it was from, those kind of natural causes of fire throughout the building. And for the longest time, you accept that because, again, trauma, your guard's down, you're witnessing something you've never seen before. And I believe that same tactic then was used with Charlie Kirk. And again, the footage is playing over and over across all social media. When we know big tech is very, very on it with canceling out gore and things like that. But this was allowed to play for a very long time. And so you're seeing the blood splurting, you're seeing him fall over, all of that. And then you're told it was a 30-06, that's what they found. And so you're just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's what it was. And you don't really think about it until later. You kind of like, wait a minute. You get over that trauma dump and you're like, oh, well, let's think logically here. This doesn't make any sense.
Well, who does it benefit getting the Muslims and the Christians fighting against each other?
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes back to what you were talking about, too, like this dichotomy. If you're not one, then you're the other. Right? There's only two choices. And this has been brainwashed into us for decades, unfortunately, with this ridiculous, two-party system. But thinking, just going back to like Teddy Roosevelt, with the Bull Moose Party, we had multiple political parties before, but now we just have, the two. So you're either red or you're blue. You're Republican or Democrat. And then it gets expanded, right? So you either are a Christian who supports Israel so that you can block out Muslims, or if you criticize Israel, then you must be, you love Muslims and you want them to take over your country. It's like, no. Two things can be true at the same time. I can both think that the radical Zionism plan is a complete detriment and enemy to American interests, as well as Muslims and Sharia law and whatnot is also a detriment and evil for American interests. Both can be true, but again, they want to plug you into, if you're not one, you're the other, in order to control you, so that you can't be this independent thinker who logically processes things and has their own opinion.
Yeah, and going back to Building 7, Larry Silverstein. He just happened to get up his...
I wonder what that name sounds like.
He just happened to up his freaking insurance like crazy amounts, like just months before this happened. And he brags about it online. And we talk about, going back to the passport coming out unscathed and all that, I think part of that is natural law is what I call it. You had a different term. There's different terminologies where the truth has to put before you and almost like we have to accept it. So I think that might be part of the reason that things are so in your face. Why these things are so obvious if you're able to look at it as part of natural law. But Larry Silverstein, he got up there and bragged about, I got real lucky, man. Just got, talking about how he bought the building for this much, but had it insured for this much. And he actually talked about how he got a call and they said, we're going to pull it about the building, basically saying they were going to demolish it. And, to watch something fall at free fall speed and have, all the demolition experts out there that aren't bought and paid for say, like, obviously and you can see the explosions. You know what I'm saying? Like yeah, we've been getting played and, going back to 9/11, we got to look at why is it that every time we have to fight the boogeyman or something bad happens to make it better, we always have to give up our freedoms and rights. It's always, you look at the Patriot Act, what's the other, there's another one, there was another one that came out with the Patriot Act around the same time, but it was also a unifier in a weird, twisted way. Instead of people looking at the corrupt government, it actually unified the people. And yeah, it did unify people against Muslims, but Americans, instead of fighting, it brought leftist and right people. Well, it depends on how extreme. There was obviously a lot of anti-war people, but as a whole, Americans were more unified than they had been in a long time after that, because it gave us a common enemy.
Well, speaking of the boogeyman and common enemies, stay tuned for the next episode where you guys tear down the big three, but we're at an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, go ahead. I'll let you have the floor. I talk too much.
I mean, this has been great, John. I think next time we can do some deep diving into some of these other, conspiracy theories. They're not really, I don't think they're theories anymore. There's enough evidence and circumstantial evidence that kind of gives you a logical conclusion to these sorts of things. But I think we can get into how, we witnessed traumatic events. We're told certain things by the media, by authorities, and we could just kind of accept that as true. And that's good for a time, but and NPCs will continue, going about their lives, never questioning it. But it's others who kind of broken out of the matrix who are like, wait a minute. What? I was told that. I kind of believed that at the time, but it doesn't really add up. It doesn't make sense when you have the time away from the traumatic event to actually think about it and process.
I forget who said it. I think it was Hillary Clinton said it, and there's a few other people that have said this throughout time, but where you repeat a lie enough times and it becomes the truth.
Yep.
And
yeah.
I wonder who owns all the media companies. I mean, the mainstream media out there. We'll have to do a deep dive on that sometime, and pretty much everything. But I guess maybe we'll get into BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and those kind of.
Those are the boogeymen that I was talking about.
Yeah, it's not conspiracy. And what conspiracy theory, I've said this many times, and many people know this now. I've been saying this for over 20 years, but the word conspiracy, actually, I've been saying this since the late 90s, and it's true. The conspiracy theory word was created to discredit people that question the official narrative of the JFK assassination. So, yep. That's a word used for anybody critically thinking about a subject that goes against mainstream or deep state or the globalist views that control all these narratives to discredit you as some kind of crazy person.
Exactly. I mean, spot on with that, because that's what's happening. There is a coordinated effort to have some kind of official narrative, and you're not allowed to question that.
Hey, thank you so much, Nathan. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and go through, have a discussion on these subjects that might not be popular, but at the same point, I think the most controversial person ever was probably Jesus. So if people are afraid to talk about things that are divisive and unpopular and just tell you what you want to hear, I could understand where people want to live in that comfortable world. But you're probably not getting the real information if they're just telling you everything's good and not talking about anything controversial. So I appreciate you for being stand up and talking about some of these things that some of your friends and family probably won't like to hear come out of your mouth.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I appreciate it. Grateful for the opportunity.
All right. Take care.